Hi, Algebra 2. This is Mr. Walker, and we are going to go ahead and start the first unit, which is on functions. We're going to start with lines, and then we'll go into quadratics, and then polynomials. So we'll start this week, and then finish next week, and then we'll have a test. I think it's next Thursday. Make sure when you're doing the homework, you're showing the work. I know there's some problems that probably don't require a whole lot of work, but there are some that do. And if you don't show the work, then I have to start deducting points off the homework. Each homework assignment is worth 5 points. And then we'll take our test. I think it's next Thursday for our first test. All right, so we're going to look at the slope of a line. And so remember, slope is just what the angle is. It could be positive or it could be negative. And so that just tells us how steep the line is. And so we have two formulas, y1 minus y2 divided by x1 minus x2. So it's just, we're going to subtract the y's, put them on top, and then subtract the x's, put them on the bottom. Or you could do the y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. If you're looking at the graph of a line, you could also do rise divided by run. And that's just how high you're going, so vertically, divided by your horizontal run. All right, so finding the slope on number 1, given 2 points, I'll just use the y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1 formula. All right, so given our formula, I'll do 10 minus negative 6, be careful of that negative, and then negative 2 minus 4. And so we have a double negative, so that's really plus, so that's 16. And then negative 2 minus 4 is negative 6. And then we always want to simplify our fractions, so we can divide by 2. We don't want to write mixed fractions. We don't want decimals. So improper fractions are fine. Just simplify your fractions. So we can divide by 2, so that's going to be negative 8 divided by 3. So negative 8/3. So make sure you get that negative in there. The negative can go to the top, it can go to the bottom, or it can go off to the side. It's the same answer. All right, so number 2, same thing. So 5 minus 5 divided by 6 minus 2. And 5 minus 5 is 0, 6 minus 2 is 4. And now we have 0 divided by 4. Now, if we put 0 divided by 4 in the calculator, it's going to actually come out to be 0. So anytime we get 0 in the numerator, we're going to remember the answer is 0. So don't leave it as 0 divided by 4. Simplify it down to 0. Okay, so a slope of 0. All right, number 3, we're going to do 8 minus 3, and we'll do 4 minus 4. All right, so here we have 5, and we're going to divide that by 0. Now, if you put 5 divided by 0 in the calculator, you're going to get an error message or domain error, and that just means that you can't divide by 0. So when that happens, we're going to write undefined. Undefined. All right. And so anytime we're dividing by 0, calculating its slope, it's undefined. All right, number 4, find the value of k so that the line goes through those 2 points and has a slope of negative 2. So now we're going to take that slope, negative 2, and put it in for m. Okay, so we just replace the slope, negative 2, and then we do the exact same thing using our slope formula. So positive 2 minus negative 8 over negative 11, and then we're going to subtract k. Now, 2 minus negative 8, we could simplify that double negative. All right, so now we have negative 2 equals, and that's going to be 10 over negative 11 minus k. Now, anytime we have a fraction equaling another fraction or a fraction equal just a number, we can make that a fraction, and we can just remember from geometry, we just multiply diagonally and then set them equal to each other. So negative 2 times negative 11 minus k is equal to 1 times 10, which is 10. Now we have to remember to distribute the negative 2 to both terms, so that's going to be 22 plus 2k equals 10. And we can subtract 22. 2k is equal to, that's negative 12. Finish it up here. 2k equals negative 12. Divide by 2 on both sides. So k equals negative 6. All right, so that's the value of k. It's negative 6. All right, so then some terms that we want to make sure we remember on lines. Okay, this is quite a bit of definitions of with lines. So anytime we have a horizontal line, its slope will always be 0. Okay, so any slope that's 0, it's a horizontal line. Anytime we have an undefined slope, that means it's a vertical line. If you were to graph the 2 points and connect them, it's going to be vertical. That's up and down. Lines that go up and to the right. Okay, so we're looking at the right arrow. If it's going up, okay, on the right side, then it's a positive slope, has a positive slope. And then any arrow or line that goes to the right and it's going down, then it's going to have a negative slope. Negative slopes. Okay, so right arrow up, positive, right arrow down means negative slope. Anytime we have two lines that never cross each other, then their slopes are the same. That means they're parallel. So all parallel lines have the same slope. Right? So if one slope is 6, then its parallel line is also 6. If one slope is 2/3, its parallel line is also 2/3. All right, so same slope. Perpendicular lines, two lines where if you were to take two of the slopes and multiply them together, its product is -1. All right, and we also say that two slopes are opposite reciprocals of each other. So the slopes are opposite reciprocals. So that means if one slope is 2/3, then its opposite reciprocal would be -3/2. So you change the sign, flip the fraction. Change the sign, flip the fraction. That's opposite reciprocal. All right. If one slope is -3/2, then its perpendicular slope is positive 2/3. And then again, you can see if we multiply them together, its product is -1. All right, horizontal lines, again, their slope is always 0. And then vertical lines, their slopes are always undefined. And if we take both of them and draw them on the same graph, they're perpendicular to each other. They create a 90-degree angle. That means perpendicular to each other, 90 degrees. All right, let's keep going. All right, intercepts. So intercepts are where the graph crosses the x-axis and the y-axis. So the x-intercept is where the graph crosses the x-axis. X-intercept crosses the x-axis. So to get it, we replace y with 0. So replace y with 0 and solve for x. To find the y-intercept, okay, that's where it crosses the y-axis. And so to find it, we replace x with 0, solve for y. All right, so in number 5, find the x and y intercepts of the graph of the line that with the equation 6x minus 8y equals 18. Then we're going to go ahead and graph the line also. All right, so really you're just making an xy table. And if you want to find the x-intercept, you replace y with 0. And if you want to find the y-intercept, you replace x with 0. Okay, so this is going to get us the x-intercept. And this is going to get us the y-intercept. All right, so we can replace y with 0. So 6x minus 8 times 0 minus, let's see, equals 18. So 8 times 0, that's 0. So we're just going to get 6x equals 18, and then divide by 6. So x equals 3. So we have an x-intercept at 3, 0. So on our graph, we're going to put a dot, positive 3 on the x-axis. All right, so then to find the y-intercept, we're going to replace x with 0. All right, so 6 times 0 minus 8y equals 18. So 6 times 0 is 0. And then 0 minus 8y is -8y. Don't forget the negative. Equals 18. Divide by -8. So y equals, you can get the fraction on this or decimal. Since we're not looking for slope, it's okay. Let's see, if we divide by 2, that's going to be -9/4. And that's -2 1/4. -2 1/4. Or -2.25 if you put it in your calculator. And so the y-intercept, it's going to cross at -2 1/4. So it's about right here. So because -2 is right there, so it's between -2 and -3. So we have our 2 points. Now we just connect them. We have our line. All right, and we can see that since the right arrow is pointing up, this would be a positive slope. Okay, if we calculate what the slope is, it would actually be positive because the right arrow is pointing up. All right, so let's keep going. Slope intercept. So that's y equals mx plus b. I should be familiar with that. If we were writing it as a function, we just replace y with f of x. All right, so anytime you see f of x, you can replace it with y. So don't get hung up on function notation. M is the slope, and then the y-intercept is 0, comma, and then the b value. Okay, so whatever b is, that's your y-intercept. That's where it crosses the y-axis. We can also see that because this is a line, all lines, the highest exponent on the x and the y are always going to be 1. So you're never going to have an exponent that's 2 or 3 if it's a line. All right, so we have a constant function, and that's always going to graph as a horizontal line, and that's slope is always 0. So for an example, y equals 3. Okay, y equals 3 is called a constant function. That's just because when you graph it, it's a horizontal line through positive 3. Slope is 0. Let's see, it's a function. If you remember, how do you even determine if it's a function or not? Well, it passes what's called the vertical line test. And so if you were to draw a vertical line anywhere through your graph, it's only going to intersect the graph one time, right? So for example, the graph that's not a function could be something like this. All right, and that's because it doesn't pass the vertical line test. And that's because it hits here and again directly below it. It's in 2 places. So that's not a function. Right. So kind of look and see, as we get through these different functions the next few days, you want to make sure that you understand what a function actually is by its graph. It has to pass the vertical line test. All right, so number 7, find the slope and the y-intercept of y equals negative 5x plus 3. And so because this is in the form of y equals mx plus b, we can see that the slope is negative 5 and the y-intercept is the b value, which is 3. All right, number 8, find the slope intercept equation, and then we're going to actually graph the line also. All right, so we have a slope, this is our m, and we have our y-intercept, that's our b. So our equation, y equals 2/5 x, and then minus 3, or plus negative 3. So now when we graph this, we always graph the y-intercept first. Okay, graph the y-intercept. So we're going to go down to negative 3 on the y-axis, put a dot, and then we're going to use the slope. So here we use rise over run. And so from our point, negative 3, we're going to go up 2, because it's positive, up 2, and then right 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right, so up 2, right 5, that's going to put us right there. All right, put our 2 dots so you can see them, then we connect them. There it is. Again, our right arrow is pointing up. It's on the right side, and the slope is positive, and it makes sense, positive 2/5. All right, number 9, find the slope of the line parallel to the equation y equals negative 3/4 x plus 6. So parallel lines have the same slope, right? So that means the slope is negative 3/4 for all parallel lines to y equals negative 3/4 x plus 6, right? So another line would be y equals negative 3/4 x minus 7. That would be parallel also. All right, number 10, find the slope of the line perpendicular to y equals negative 3/4 x plus 6. So perpendicular slopes have opposite signs and reciprocals. So we change the sign from a negative to a positive. Oops. All right, so it's going to be positive, and then we flip the fraction 4/3. So the perpendicular slope to negative 3/4 is positive 4/3. All right, so note, the only lines that are not functions are vertical lines. Okay, vertical lines are have the equation x equals a number, like x equals 5, x equals negative 2. They don't pass the vertical line test. All right, so x equals 5 is a line, but it's not a function. And that's because it doesn't pass the vertical line test if you were to graph it. All right, let's keep going. All right, standard equations for a line. So ax plus by equals c. So that means x and y are on the same side of the equal sign. We have a constant term, just a number, that's the c value on the right side by itself. Let's see, a, b, and c are all integers. That means there's no fractions or decimals. A, we always want it to be positive. That's what non-negative means. Again, we can see the exponents would be 1 for both x and y. So there's no exponents that are higher than 1. No exponents 2 or 3 if it's linear or a line. All right, so number 11, write the equation y minus 5 equals 2/3 times x minus 6 in standard form. So standard form, we want to get rid of any fractions. We want to get rid of any parentheses. We want to get x and y on the same side. So the first step we want to do is distribute. All right, so y minus 5 equals 2/3 times x is 2/3 x, and then minus 2/3 times 6. Okay, so remember when you multiply fraction times a whole number, just turn the whole number into a fraction, 6/1, multiply it across, so 2 times 6 is 12, and then 3 times 1 is 3. 12 divided by 3, or 12/3, turns to 4. Okay, and now we want to, let's see, we can add the 5 over, because we can combine like terms. So y equals 2/3 x plus 1. All right, we want to get rid of fractions, so I'm going to get rid of the fraction 2/3. So all I have to do is get rid of that denominator 3 by multiplying everything by 3. If I multiply everything by 3, 3 times y is 3y. The 3's will cancel here diagonally, and that just gives me 2x plus 1 times 3 is 3. All right, so I'm getting close. All I have to do is, let's see, I'll subtract the 2x because I got to get the x's and the y's on the same side. So now I have a negative 2x plus 3y equals 3. Now, I don't want to lead off with a negative, and that just says a needs to be non-negative or positive. Okay, non-negative means positive. And so to get rid of that negative in front, all I have to do is multiply everything by -1. And if I multiply everything by -1, it just means that all the signs are going to change to their opposite. So negative 2x changes to positive 2x, plus 3y changes to minus 3y, and positive 3 changes to negative 3. All right, so again, all I did was multiply through by -1, and that changed the negative 2 to positive 2, and then all the other signs changed also. So that's standard form. Ax plus by equals. All right, almost done. All right, so the last line equation that we're looking at is point slope. Point slope is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. M is our slope, and then there's a point, x1 minus, or x1, y1, that the line goes through. All right, so give the point slope equation for the line that has a slope -3 and a point for -10. All right, so we have our slope m, and we have our point. That's our x1, y1. And so we just plug those into our formula. Okay, so y minus y1. So y minus -10 is going to change to y plus 10 equals our slope, -3 times x, and then minus the x coordinate, x1, so x minus 4. All right, and we can see that this is in the form of y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. That's our point slope. All right, 13, give the point slope equation for the line that has these 2 points. All right, so again, if you look at what you need to find the slope. They don't give you the slope on this equation or in this problem, like number 12. 13, they just give you 2 points. So we have to first find the slope, and so we have a formula to find the slope. That's the y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So let's go ahead and find it. So 9 minus -5 over 1 minus 2. All right, so double negative, that's going to be 14 divided by -1, and then that's -14. So we have the slope, and now we just have to find one of the points that we can use, and it doesn't matter which point you use, 2, -5, or 1, 9. Okay, you just have to use one of them, doesn't matter. I'll just use the 1, 9, and that's just because there's no negatives in it, but it wouldn't matter if you use 2, -5. All right, so I'll give you both answers. So if you use 1, 9, your answer would be y. minus 9 equals negative 14, which is the slope, times x minus 1. All right, that's point slope. If you use the point 2, negative 5, your answer would be y minus negative 5, which is going to be y plus 5, equals the slope, negative 14 times x minus 2. All right. So if the problem asks you to write an equation point slope, you can give either answer. You don't have to give both, but there are two different answers. All right, so 14, give the slope-intercept equation. That's y equals mx plus b. That's what we want to write our final answer in. For the line that has a point, 9, negative 2, and is parallel to the line y equals 8x plus 1. So parallel lines all have the same slope. So we have to find the slope of this line they give us. So this slope is 8. We have to use the slope 8. And we're going to use this point, 9, negative 2. And we're going to use the point slope form first. From point slope, we can put it in y equals mx plus b, which is the slope intercept form. So y minus negative 2 equals 8. That's the slope we want to use, x minus 9. All right, double negative. And now we'll just distribute the 8 in and then solve for y, because they want it in y equals mx plus b. All right, and then we'll subtract the 2 over. So y equals 8x minus 74. All right, so that's in the form of y equals mx plus b, which is slope-intercept form. All right, last one. Again, slope-intercept form is what they want. They give you a point, but now they want it to be perpendicular. All right, so perpendicular have opposite reciprocal slopes. So since this slope is 8, we have to change the sign and flip the fraction. Well, if we flip 8 to fraction 8, that's really 8 over 1. That would be negative 1 over 8. So that's the perpendicular slope. And then we're going to use the point 8, negative 2. So again, we have to use point slope first. So y minus negative 2 equals our slope, negative 1/8, times x minus 8. All right, they don't want it in point slope, they want it in slope intercept. So we'll have to distribute the negative 1/8 in. We have a double negative there. So y plus 2 equals negative 1/8x plus, this is negative 8 over 1. And then if you multiply across, 1 times 8 is 8, and then 8 times 1 is 8, and 8 divided by 8 is 1. A negative times a negative is positive. Subtract the 2 over. So y equals negative 1/8x minus 1. So that's y equals mx plus b, or slope-intercept form. All right. So hopefully you understood all this stuff, or most of it. Go back and look at the video again if there's anything that you weren't sure of. And if you need any extra help on the homework, you can always either email me, or there will be a Zoom meeting that you can ask questions. Although trying to explain how to do a problem in a video is going to be pretty hard, but if you email me, that's going to be a lot easier, and I can take a picture of the work I'm doing, and if I need to send a video about completing the problem, then I can do that also. So just email me if you aren't sure about something. All right, so good luck, and we'll talk to you later.